forward, of course, this name has been, ever since I got into mortgages, I lived out in the Waterford area. My first house was off of Elizabeth Lake, so I'm really from your area. And all my houses that I bought, actually, other than one other one, have always been in the Lakes area. And it just keeps growing, and that's the part I love so much about it, Emily, is that everything's starting to move our way. People want new construction, and I see that there's not a lot out there. Independence Township, the areas near you are really springing up.
They really have. I mean, we were so fortunate with the changes that have happened in the last couple of 3 years that people wanted to come to our area that never wanted to before, because they wanted property and they wanted to be on the lakes and they could, work remotely. So they had different options, and we've always been kind of that furthest northern suburb. People are like, oh, it's so far, and but we've been so fortunate that we've had so many people want to live where we live.
For lots of great reasons. Now they have great schools out there. You got the Flint Bishop Airport not too far away, Oakland U, all the schools, the communities, the history in the school districts are just so strong out that way. And like you said, they like the lakes area, they like a little bit more open land, and you're that much closer to being up north, which is really cool because you're not really that far, just in the northern area of Oakland County.
And we have our downtown area, referred to it as Mayberry, affectionately. It's like, when can you miss it? But it's super charming, and Pine Knob, Nicky's kids are skiers and snowboarders.
Oh, yeah.
What could be better than you're 5 minutes away from a ski hill and a music amphitheater, and we're kind of a little spoiled. I think we forget sometimes how lucky we are that we live where we do, but there's nowhere I'd rather live. That's where I'm from, and that's where I live now.
We're up at Pine Knob all the time, because I'm teaching my daughters how to snowboard, right? We're going on our third season, and I feel like I'm always teaching someone how to snowboard, but it made me have a new affinity for winter. That's why I love where we live, because you can drive 4 hours and you feel like if you're at Torch Lake or Higgins Lake, it's the most beautiful waters you've ever seen. And then at the same time, you can go skiing at these, at Boyne and Pine Knob and Mount Holly, and then you also can just be on a random lake anywhere, really, and it just allows for that 365 really enjoyment of being in Michigan. I mean, don't get me wrong, I went on my honeymoon last year, and for the first time in my life, I went somewhere during the winter months, and I was like, oh man, I missed that vitamin D there for a minute, but because this is now that I didn't go this year, but I love the fact that you can do anything you want here in Michigan, and you don't have just one set season all the time.
Yeah, having kids, it's nice just to have something to do where they can get some energy out and have fresh air, and there's a bar there, so it's always
right. Yeah, something for parents to do.
Right.
You guys work all 5 counties also, so I don't want to pinpoint just that one area. You guys work all 5 counties, but again, you have expertise in some of the different areas in northern Oakland County, which is really special, and you help so many families out that way. So lots of fun, and again, I still like that area, and I see more and more of my friends starting to really sell their houses sort of down here in the southern Oakland County and saying, you know what, I want to get on that water, and that's really a nice lifestyle.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of transplants, and frankly, not to make it about Nicky and I, but like you, Harvey.
Make it about you guys.
But we've actually we've lived on the lakes for a long time, both of us, and on different lakes. So we have kind of a unique, perspective to be able to share with people. Okay, this is exactly, what to look out for. Nicky actually has a good story. She just is kind of working on.
Well, yes, we were talking about this before the show, and so this is, I'll do a little prelude for you. So, Nicky's going to tell the story because obviously she's experiencing it, but again, this goes into who you're working with matters. And sometimes, if you just hire just anyone to list your home, that affects the buyer, and, you kind of got to flush it out as a buyer's agent to really get that proper information, right?
Right. I mean, I think personally, if I list something, I want to know as much as possible about the listing. I do my homework. But with buyers, it's you almost have to do the same thing. So I have a client who's been looking for a lakefront for a while. His budget's around $400. So, there's not a ton of options to choose from. So we found this house in Lake Orion, or no, White Lake, not Mandan Lake. Anyways, great house. It was kind of a remodel, but it's on a canal, and he is I want to make an offer, but it's all dependent on if I can put a dock in, because I want to make sure I can, utilize the lakefront. So we walked the property yesterday, all bundled up. Cannot, tell, because it's pretty overgrown, if you could install a dock. So Emily helped me find someone who installs docks. I sent him the aerial view, and meanwhile I've reached out to the listing agent just to see if she could ask the seller if he's ever had a dock there. If he did, how was it installed? Do we have a boat? Blah blah blah. Anyways, The dock person said they could come out and look at the property, but maybe there'd have to be a seawall, which is pretty costly, installed. And the listing agent said, no, there is a dock and it's already there. It's attached to the seawall. And so I talked to my buyer and he's like, I didn't see a dock. And I was like, I didn't see one either. So I looked at the aerial view and there was a dock in the neighbor's property. So I reached out to the listing agent just to see if that was the dock that he was talking about. And her response was just to book another showing and to go look again.
So is it really the neighbor's dock?
Well, that's the thing. I just want to know if she could ask the seller if that was the dock they were talking about, or if there's another dock that might be under the growth that we didn't see. But she just...
That lack of communication.
Yeah. She just told us to go back out and look again.
Yes.
Nikki, are we making an offer on this house? Because the agent could be listening. So we want the house. Wait, let me just help you out here. We'll take the house.
He's ready to make his move, and he's a cash buyer. So I feel like, if we can get him the info. So I actually might go back out today and walk the property myself just to see.
So are you seeing a lot of that? So so let's just set aside the dock, right? So that lack of communication on their side, because I feel like most people are evolving to that point of you need to reach across the aisle, you need to be able to shake the hands and kiss the babies, because that's really what we're all here to do. We're all on the same team trying to achieve the same results for all of our clients. But are you guys sensing a lot of that lack of communication from sometimes a listing agent where they just are not helpful in those situations, and they feel like they're like, oh, well, you're going to offer or you're not, and we're going to win this, and they kind of feel entitled? I guess I don't know what word to put on that.
I mean, it's very rare. Most agents I work with have been amazing. I do feel like now that the market seems to be shifting a bit, you kind of have to do more homework, because it's not like you're getting like 7 offers the day after you list the house that are all over asking with appraisal guarantees and waived inspections. So it's almost like, personally, I want to have that information handy and ready and my homework done. So if someone is working with someone that wants to make a move quick, I can get them that and they can be first in.
And we call it spoon feeding, what can I tell you? I want to have everything at my fingertips. And I also have someone, I always say I have someone for pretty much anything. So when Nikki and I were in the office last night late, I said, hey, call this gentleman who I know owns a dock company. He lives on a lake. He's going to be able to tell you, and he's going out today.
Oh, great. Yeah, get some professionals out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to be that one-stop shop, but what you to that point is you can't go based off of assumptions, right? Because as you know, you can have someone that's listing the house and they have no idea what's happening. Right. Is that dock really on someone else's parcel, and then you just had a really cool neighbor that was willing to use it, but that's not yours at the end of the day? And what if the new neighbor doesn't like the existing neighbor or whatever's happening? So you have to do your due diligence, because obviously as an agent, you have to constantly do the work, but then you also have to do the work on top of the other person's.
You might have buyer's remorse, that's for sure. And that's why really buying a house maybe this year could even be better than the last couple of years, because you have that little extra time where your agent can dig in a little bit deeper. Again, just even when we talk water or lake properties, like Becky said, you could have a really cool neighbor and they're like, oh, don't worry about it and stuff. Then they sell and the game changes quickly. Also, the lake could be electric, only maybe electric motors out there, no gas. Maybe different rules, different strokes for different folks. Everything's a little different out there. You got to do that extra homework, and today's market just allows for that time.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going the extra mile, and even I had a listing that I suggested they list their house. They were thinking, well, wait till, Becky said, wait till March. And I said, no, this is the time if you want to sell. But even now, so we're just really adapting. We're always kind of like you said, pivoting, because for a while we didn't necessarily have to have homes, staged or, minimized. I'd go in there and be like, I've never told so many people in short order, you don't have to do anything to your house. They were looked at me like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes, you don't have to do anything. But like Nikki said, now it's sometimes I'm taking my stager gal with me, on the first appointment. I'm like, here she is. We're going to get a game plan together. And it's just about being professional. And like you said, pulling in those other professionals that are going to give people the best advice.
I think it's back to basics. Yep. What is old is new again. And I kind of actually been looking forward to a market like this, because I do feel like there was just a lot of people getting in that just, oh, I can just do this. It's so easy. And it's not. Not everyone can be successful on the mortgage side of things, on real estate side of things. And, we're going to see this little bit of a flush out. They say that right now, 30% of agents are going to get out entirely, 60% are going to struggle, and then the 10%, like yourselves, are the ones that are invested in their clients. you're the ones that are going to shine through, because people are going to see the difference, they feel the difference, and you hear the difference when you're communicating with your clients, right? They see you doing those due diligence, and they see you making that phone call, and they're like, oh, go out there and do another listing. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it anyway. I was just hoping you could throw me a bone, but clearly you're not educated on the property, so I'm going to go ahead and do the work for all of us, right?
That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's how you have to get the job done, though.
And my mom, I hate to say it, but it goes, like you said, Becky, back to basics. My mom always told me from day one in real estate, you have to do everyone's job.
Yes.
So I learned that like when I was, young.
Girl,
I was
you're
like,
preaching to the
really?
choir. I'll put on my processing hat, my underwriting
For
hat.
sure.
I'm like, I'll help you with
Right.
the purchase agreement if you don't know. I was helping someone last night. I'm like, this is how we're going to do a concession offer, newer agent. But because we have that expertise, right? And Harvey and I always say, like, we are experienced we are experienced in our field, and we're creating experiences for our buyers and our sellers and our borrowers, whether they're refinancing, whether it's their first home, their fifth home, and it doesn't get old. You always remember, anytime you bought a house, you always remember every time you refinance a house, and it's really about, what do you remember about it? Was it an enjoyable experience, or was it chaotic? And I'm
Exactly.
peace over chaos all the time.
Oh yeah, make it smooth and easy. Yeah, I did mention actually on the podcast that I'm working with one of my youngest buyers ever, and it's really exciting. Not even 20 years old yet, buying her first home, and how much she just like loves the house, and she's so thankful. And then I have someone else who's 24, who's not even diving in, who again a few years older, should be a little bit more understanding, trying to get that education piece underneath them, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a challenge. And we want to go back to what your mom said, actually, Emily, is really the basics and really educating and just slowing it down a little bit. I actually wrote down that's what the show I wanted to do today. We talk about funds to close. We talk about program and the mortgage that fits your needs. And then, of course, presenting that to the seller and having it all done so that when I say to Emily Ford, Emily, this client's approved, ready to go, we're going to close in 30 days, that truly happens. That's what our industry is all about really right now in 2023.
Right, and you and Harvey, you and Becky could tell us better than we could say it, but Nicky and I always say it's like things change in the lending industry on a daily basis. So I always say defer the experts. I'm like, I'm in tune and I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse, but call your lender and say, okay, what's the best avenue? Because just like the two of you were talking about before the show started, it's like there's so many different options for people, but you've got to be real adept as a lender to just like figure out the best avenue.
Yeah, it's not soup du jour, like we like to say. Everyone's situation is different, and your home buying, what loan you got is not going to be the same one that I would get or you would get, Emily. So it really does matter in talking it out, and you can't fake it till you make it on the lending side. I will say that. And I know you guys see a lot of those pre-approvals out there that you're like, I'm going to question, so I'm going to call and make sure this is a real pre-approval out here.
Yeah.
All right, we're up against our second break here. When we come back, all of your calls, 248-539-9797. We'll be back.